Hi, Saurabh sir and Sunu ma'am. We are waiting for the participants to join. We will start the session at 9:20. Am I audible, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. So, are we waiting for someone to join?
Uh, actually, we are waiting till 9:30 for all the participants to join because we are given
Okay.
the slot time from 9 to 2.
Got it.
So yeah,
Got
just
it.
10 minutes more. Yeah,
Oh,
let me start the session.
yep.
Good morning, everyone. We are going to start the session. So, welcome to the Interactive Technique 10.0. We have our judges, Mr. Suman and Mr. Saurabh, sir. So, I would like to brief you on the instruction that we will follow in today's call. So, nowhere on the PPT the name of IIT should be mentioned. Otherwise, there will be penalty of 5%. And all the presenters of each team are expected to raise their hands on the platform before their turn to receive an invite from the host to present live on the stage. And only a maximum of 5 participants per team will be allowed to present. That is, will be given speaker and presenter access, and the same 5 people will be taking the Q&A as well. The rest of the teams can attend as attendees. Each presentation will be a 15-minute long, followed by a 5-minute Q&A session. 2 minutes prior to the completion of the allotted time, that is 15 minutes, the team would be notified by a sound of a buzzer, following which you would be expected to wrap up your respective presentation. If you exceed 15 minutes, you will be automatically. Okay, so I would request team number 10 to start their presentation, and I would also request the next team to be ready with their presentation. Okay, so team number 10 members can raise their hand. Okay, I'm giving them the presenters right. Judges, I want to confirm that whether you have received this score sheet format from us. Suman sir or Saurabh sir?
Yeah, I have that. The Google Sheet, right?
Yeah, that sheet.
Yes, I have the access,
Yeah,
and I
hi.
have.
Suman sir and Saurabh sir, I hope you guys have received your score sheet. The event is total of 300 points, and I hope it's visible that you have split it into 5 parameters, and
Yes.
each parameters has like a certain set of total points assigned to it. So, based on the presentation, you have to like score the teams on those 5 parameters. Let's say the first parameter is of total 105 points. So, if you feel that the team has like done pretty well in that particular parameter, you can score them like 80, 90. Yeah, I hope that's clear. The scoring.
Yes.
Yes.
Excuse me, requesting the host to accept our fifth presenter.
Yeah, Abhinav. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just accepting. Okay, I guess all the 5 participants are on the stage. So yeah, you can present your presentation. All the best.
Good luck, everyone.
Your
The presentation is visible.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Hi all, this is Team 10 presenting Blue Yonder's Sustainable Supply Chain Challenge and Evaluation presentation. The problem statement demands a 5-year roadmap with initiatives to achieve significant carbon reduction in supply chains. This is expected to be done by NAWCI, which is a cohort of large and mid-sized Indian companies in collaboration with the government. India at COP26 made bold commitments for its 50-year plan, which include net zero by 2070, 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel energy capacity by 2030, with an investment of approximately 45 lakh crore rupees to meet the goals. Some of the government policies important for our problem are FAME, NLP, and NWP, which will be discussed later. Here we have an overview of carbon output of Indian supply chains in transport, packaging, and warehousing sectors. Clearly, there is a great room for improvement in each of these. In the current transportation scenario, 39% of all transported goods are manufacturing related. 220 million tons of CO2 is emitted by the transport sector, which contributes to 13.5% of the total emissions in India. At present, 92% of non bulk goods are transported via road, while 6% is done by rail. The graph indicates that rail mode is much more efficient than road. The inefficiency of road transportation is due to unorganization and fragmentation, among other reasons. The shift to rail is hindered by track sharing, overutilization, and imbalanced capacity distribution. Moving on to warehousing, some of the challenges faced are fuel consumption, lighting, climate control, and poor inventory management. The current optimization techniques use labor management, slotting software for maximizing space utilization, tracking the storage KPI, and conduction of ABC analysis. Here, the graph indicates percentage carbon emission from various energy sources used to fulfill the demands in large and highly technical warehouses for lighting, heating, cooling, and air conditioning. In the packaging sector, the problems faced include century long degradation processes of materials that generate pollutants, inefficient packaging, and increased number of returns. If the current situation persists, the waste is expected to increase by 3 times by 2030, and its mismanagement is expected to cause a loss of 133 billion US dollars. In addition, an added 8.5 million tons of carbon footprint is predicted by 2070. Analyzing the life cycle assessment of 1 ton of retail packaging material, paper bags, glass bottles, and metal cans are the top 3 contributors to CO2 equivalent.
We present our initiatives divided into 4 domains: warehousing, transportation, packaging, and government initiatives. We will start off with the suggestions for policies to the Government of India. Policies based on rewarding the company with most EVs and exchange of old trucks with EVs can have a huge impact. The unused budget of the ministry can be used to set up green fuel units. Along with this, time of government offices and private offices can be kept different to reduce traffic. As improvements to the already existing FAME 2 policy, we suggest government to support big companies invested in EVs and invest the remaining budget in providing battery subsidies, fast chargers, and improving vehicle design and battery technologies. Government shall look to manage energy at the micro level, and already the government plans to build multimodal logistic parks strategically located having various features. It involves public-private partnerships which can happen with companies of NAWCI. Also, we build on the fact that solar power is less expensive than diesel power. In the next version of the new warehousing policy, we suggest 40% roofs to have solar panels compulsorily. Further, Government of India will set up a blockchain-like energy grid with every energy producing unit as a node. The surplus energy would be traded based on the approval of majority nodes, managing demand better. According to our calculations, if minimum area of an MMLP is 100 acres, 40% of it is available for use by solar panels with the current technologies. The design of solar panels can be improved to maximize this percentage. These solar panels would be able to fulfill one-third requirement of the warehouse. We present the case of a company Bari and how it can recover all setup costs in just 15 years. India has a booming number of registered companies and e-commerce businesses accounting to 23% of greenhouse gas emissions. With this, we move to our flagship government policy. We suggest the government to devise a policy to tax companies based on the green metric we define, which measures how green is a company. To be eligible for the benefits of the policy, the company needs to fulfill certain eligibility criteria, which are followed by 2492 registered public companies. If the changes in our metric are positive, the company will be rewarded, and if it is negative, it will be penalized appropriately. Here, we define certain slabs based on G star defined previously. Appropriate tax rebates will be given based on a positive change in G star with additional benefit on showing improvement for consecutive years. Similarly, companies will have to pay tax on per ton of carbon emitted if they show negative progress in terms of sustainability and heavy penalization if done for consecutive years. To define the impact, we construct a fictional company having a revenue of 600 crores. We can see a reduction of nearly 69 million metric tons of carbon dioxide with a benefit of 45 crores in tax to the company.
Now coming to the transport sector. One of the main challenges faced by the heavily relied upon road sector is the lack of organization and its fragmented nature. For example, over 75% of the sector is run by players with less than 5 trucks. A visible solution lies in intermodal shift. Intermodal shifting refers to the optimal use of various modes of transport. It can be implemented in 3 simple steps, namely the identification of potential routes, planning and setting up of necessary infrastructure, and then gradual implementation. When studying Schneider's intermodal solutions, using precision scheduling and by enabling end-to-end visibility, they were able to reduce costs by 30%. When applied to the Indian scenario, we observe a 14% reduction in the carbon footprint and a potential 1.56 million trucks off the roads. Now coming to overloading. Overloading is a significant problem we need to consider given the fact that an extra 461 tons of CO2 is emitted per kilometer per year by an overloaded truck. Using appropriate load matching techniques, we can reduce the total carbon footprint by 10%. Coming to accidents. Accidents are mainly caused by the overloading of trucks and by drunk driving. In order to tackle this, we propose the monitoring of driver behavior similar to European countries. Using AI-based solutions, we estimate that the total cost of investment can be returned within 3 years. For fruitful implementation, customers should insist on using measures such as driver scores. The next solution that we propose is the usage of EVs for last-mile delivery. Initiatives like Mahindra's eDel must be encouraged and implemented. Strategies like deliveries during non-peak hours and digitization of the supply chain could also be used. It is estimated that the TCO for EVs will be equal to that of standard trucks by 2023 for LDVs and 2030 for all trucks. A CO2 reduction of 162 ton per kilometer is also predicted following this shift. Now coming on to our flagship initiative. We propose a unified third-party logistics platform for all NAWCI companies. A unified 3PL provider could solve a bunch of problems currently in the sector and has the most realistic potential. A unified 3PL provider could use concepts like load matching, appropriate vehicle selection, standardizing practices, and optimizing operations. Furthermore, some of the novel initiatives we propose include 3PL for railway and warehouse optimization integration. When modeled along the line of UPS's route optimization strategies and UK shift to optimized trucking, we find that the sector could potentially save 1.3 lakh crore along with the reduced emissions of 8.2 billion kgs of CO2. On improving load factors by using solutions like Porter, there is a potential for an additional 3.4 billion tons of cargo movement in 2030. Now coming to warehousing. The adoption of fluorescent lighting can save 18,000 crore rupees and improve ventilation techniques like the use of air curtains must be incentivized by the government. Improving the structure of warehouses can further help by increasing operational as well as sustainable efficiency. Using third-party solutions could be a simple way to realize these initiatives. The next initiative we propose is the setting up of solar parks near warehouses. We find that in shifting to renewable solar energy, there are considerable monetary benefits, along with the fact that we can reduce the carbon footprint of the warehousing industry down by 67%.
Moving on to packaging. Some of the short-term initiatives are banning single-use plastic and shifting to recyclable, reusable, or compostable plastic, replacing virgin plastic with PCR plastic in packaging, using paper shreds instead of bubble wraps and Ziplocs instead of PVC tapes. We need easy-to-open packaging so that it can be recollected and reused. For design and efficiency optimization, some suggested initiatives are using AI models to optimize box dimensions and occupancy, removing excess air from packages, ensuring proper protective packaging to prevent damage during shipping, shipping different types of products together for maximum space utilization, and fixing products in air inside packages, which eliminates the need for protection. Some greener packaging solutions in the form of new age biomaterials are seaweed packaging, mushroom packaging, agro waste packaging, bamboo fiber packaging, and tree resin packaging. Bioplastics. They have a smaller carbon footprint as compared to their fossil fuel based counterparts. PET and PP, which account for about 50% of plastic consumption in the packaging industry, can be replaced by bio-PET and bio-PE. Shifting to bioplastics can save 8.5 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year. Plastics have a much lower carbon footprint compared to paper and glass. A paper bag has to be used 3 times to match the carbon impact of a single-use plastic bag. A PET bottle with 0% recycled content still has a lower carbon footprint than 80% recycled glass bottle and 48% recycled aluminum can. Recycled PET has 79% lesser emissions, and recycled HDPE and PP have 71% lesser emissions. Therefore, reusing and recycling can significantly reduce the carbon emissions in packaging. 11% of the global carbon dioxide emissions are due to landfills, which can be reduced by reusing and recycling. 0.8 kilograms of carbon dioxide emissions can be saved for every kilogram of cardboard reused. 20% products received in the e-commerce industry are damaged and ultimately returned. Proper protective packaging can reduce this number. Here, we present a case study on eco-cushion paper to which we had an offline visit. It is an innovation in protective packaging. Its honeycomb structure traps air and gives protection, making it a cleaner replacement for bubble wraps and air pillows. Eco-cushion paper has been tried and tested by very big names like Tata and Mahindra. Its efficient use can reduce the carbon emissions during shipping up to 25%. Some of its key features are it's eco-friendly, cost-efficient, reduces storage space required, provides strong protection, and provides a fantastic unboxing user experience. Here's the comparison between eco-cushion paper and bubble wrap. A proposed policy is the recollection and reuse of used e-commerce packaging material. The boxes can be standardized to make it implementable. Taking the numbers and assuming that the US consumption is equivalent to an Indian metropolitan city consumption, each person uses about 27 boxes a year, which amounts to 400 Indian rupees. About 60% of the packaging boxes can be reused since only the top layer needs to be replaced. We can incentivize customers with discounts based on the number of packaging returned. The boxes can be tracked and linked with the customers and the workers through QR codes. Here's a proposed parameter, eco-friendly ratio E, that can be used to decide the discounts, incentivizing the customers to return more used packages, which can be standardized among all the companies of NAWCI. Implementation of this policy can reclaim about 10.4 million kilograms of carbon dioxide from a metropolitan city. With this policy, 1.01 billion rupees can be recovered per year with a one-time investment of 3.36 billion rupees in a metropolitan city. Here, a flow chart which represents our proposed model for a sustainable circular supply chain.
Ideas that look highly impactful on paper, if backed by historical trials and pilot programs, are key indicators of their credibility to deliver. An association like the NAWCI will not blindly invest time or resources in ideas that would not fit theirs or the government's goals. To discuss the strategic fit of our ideas, here are 4 case studies to boost confidence in our pitch. IKEA was posed with packaging inefficiencies in their loading mechanisms, reworking packaging to remove any excess air, rearranging products during loading to fill maximum space, and balancing truckload evenly and extensively allowed them to reduce 400 containers on European roads alone and increase utilization of their transport fleet. As IKEA expands to India, we are optimistic to see more sustainable practices from them to lead the packaging industry. The North American Council for Freight Efficiency's success in improving transport methodologies in North America should give a grand association like the NAWCI a go-go to set up extensive collaboration with 3PL players and, more importantly, the Indian Railways to streamline and enable intermodal logistics. Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari's plans to join major trading hubs through the dedicated road freight corridors and Nestle's increased usage of the railway dedicated freight corridors over the past 2 years are initiatives to learn and build on from for the NAWCI cohort of companies. A battery swapping solution by Gogoro has been instrumental in cutting drastic emissions over the past 7 years in the city of Taipei in Taiwan. Their EV offerings and an extensive battery swapping Kaios grid has ensured a seamless experience for the users of the product. In the Indian space, the likes of Ola and Ather Energy are currently dealing with production and technology constraints, and a player like Gogoro entering the Indian space in collaboration with Hero Electric should prove instrumental in shaping India's EV space over the next few years. The government's vocal interest for the technology in this year's financial budget and the recently launched Shunya initiative to recognize, spread awareness, and provide complete resource toolkits to buying electric vehicles shall pave the way for zero pollution mobility and last mile logistics in India. In another case on EVs, the Delhi government has been working tirelessly to improve their air quality standards and public health. Their pilot program with various private players has given them great insight to prepare their extensive EV policy, and pave their way to have a robust EV charging grid to support their already running EV last mile logistic vehicles and many more to come in the future. To wrap up, we firmly believe that the NAWCI should implement our ideas to improve supply chains in the country and take immediate and long-term steps to vigilantly push for sustainability. Beyond the mentioned points, the NAWCI should also heavily look into setting up R&D and innovation centers in collaboration with Indian engineering and management institutions to continuously innovate and improve their supply chains to supply chain practices to put India a step ahead to realize its COP26 goals. Thank you.
Yeah, now judges can proceed towards the Q&A session. Suman sir and Saurabh sir.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for the presentation. Very thorough, and it's very interesting to see the end-to-end approach that you brought to the supply chain, right? And then talking about how the improvement will come. Couple of points that come to mind. If you have to pick the top two projects, right? So somewhere along the way, you said 3PL is your priority. That your proposal above everything else, what would you be your top two ideas that you would want to the government to prioritize, and why?
So the first one being the recollection of used e-commerce packaging should be the first idea, because the packaging recollected can have a significant impact, because as we mentioned, it ends up in landfills, which emits about 11% of the global carbon dioxide emissions. And reusing can also save up costs for for big names like Amazon, Flipkart, and Myntra in India. Therefore, and it will prevent the pollution in oceans too. So it's one of our policies.
So a follow-up question on that. First, good morning, everyone.
Morning,
It
sir.
was a amazing presentation, and I would say a very good job done. So the changing in the usage of packaging requires change in the social behavior also, where so that there are a couple of things which are there in our area of influence and some things which are outside. So what other than this would you think where you will be certainly able to make a mark, given that you have been given an investment? Think like an entrepreneur and recommend where you can have the maximum ROI and you make the maximum impact.
Just to follow up, are you asking to think of some other policy, or are you asking us to
Yep,
suggest an
yep,
improvement to
yep.
this?
Anything. Here, if you're sure packaging, you can make a big impact, it's fine. But in case if you have some other area where you can surely say we can definitely make an impact given this amount of investment, what would be that area?
So, to answer on the packaging initiative, we feel that once this changes come slowly, and if implemented correctly, like simply a guide on Amazon's website to return packaging, that can also go along with. People have initially people were not returning packages also in the form that they should. Now they have started returning, like even the Myntra packets. Now they're returned in their original paper packaging usually, and now people have learned to correctly open the packaging mostly. So that is how we feel that this can be done. And also, Aditya will describe the 3PL policy that we feel is another significant step that we will take.
So the 3PL is, as we said, it's a flagship policy that we proposed, and we believe that it's the most implementable policy given the current situation. And there is also an immense potential given the Indian scenario to carry this forward. I've already discussed the monetary benefits and the ecological impact, which are quite significant.
And to a certain extent, the North American Council for Freight Efficiency has been able to implement their ideas, and we're trying to look at a similar setup in the Indian subcontinent as well.
So we do have some 3PLs, right? If you take Safe Express or SRL or even
TCI.
So have you guys investigated whether they have been successful? What are the limitations for their business model to be accepted in India? Why do we have this fragmentation? The supply networks that are probably reasons for why 3PLs are not able to pick it up. The second part of the question is is intermodal also necessarily part of your proposal for 3PL, or you are saying that even road-based 3PLs would be significantly successful?
So to answer your second part first, road-based 3PLs would significantly improve the current situation, but an additional intermodal shift would add on like a bonus. Currently in India, you cannot book compartments of a train or even parts of a wagon. You would have to book an entire train to ship your freight. That is not a very efficient way of moving your cargo through train. So given a 3PL solution that could aggregate cargo and then book a train, that would be helpful in moving to intermodal modes of transport.
So,
And
Aditya, I'll intervene for a second. So, you've heard of Container Corporation of India?
yeah,
That allows a 20-footer container and a 40-footer container to be moved individually. So, have you done some research and study how successful they have been on intermodal till now?
not quite. We studied intermodal. We studied Schneider's method of intermodal, their solution.
Okay, so
So,
since last 30 to 30 years, they have been operating in India, and I think some evaluation there will certainly.
Uh, and could you repeat the first part of your question, the one which I skipped?
So yeah, my question was around effectiveness of the existing 3PL participants, and whether they're having a successful business right now. What is the growth rate that any of these companies is having right now? Many of these companies have been around for 15, 20 years now, right? The road-based ones. So,
Uh,
what exactly is the white space that can be filled either through participation from private participants, or is it some government policy that needs to enable them?
Right. So already as Aditya covered that the road logistics is something that we try to expand into. But through the intermodal initiative, we looked at the railways more. We scrutinized the railways more extensively, and we did investigate the railways more deeply. To our finding, we found that uh, the railways is really packed with their passenger side of offerings, and commercial is something that they're still working on. Their dedicated freight corridors are still building, and the railways would not be able to really invest a lot of time and resources in this, and would rather invite 3PLs to come in and normalize things with them. And that is why we felt that this is a great initiative to pitch, where the railways only gets a consignment to push from a point A to point B, while 3PL partners look into all other logistics.
also, to
uh,
adding to this, basically the road sector, we feel that all the entire trucking sector, as you mentioned, it is very fragmented right now, and fragmentation is a major challenge to solve, and it is a long-term challenge to solve. So, but it is important to provide end to, if a 3PL can provide end-to-end solution, like as we described, Porter provides solution for deliveries, but it does not provide solutions for shipping. So that is the issues we feel that 3PL can resolve.
I would
Okay,
like to
thank
clarify
you.
one thing. When we say that the sector is fragmented, we meant that over 70% of the players currently have less than 5 trucks, and there is a very small proportion of players who are large, who have more than 10 trucks. It's about 10%, if I remember correctly. So,
Understood.
as you said, there are 3PL solutions, but they have a very meager percent of the market. So, that should be improved upon. That was our major aim.
Oh, so, thank you. One last question, guys, right? And again, a lot of thought has gone in. Obviously, you had tons and tons of data-driven slides that you really quickly ran through, shows all your analysis. The last question I have is around the commerce side of the business and where the industry is going, how commerce is growing. Um, so if you take are you expecting this explosion of growth in India to be based on e-com? Is it more traditional growth? Would you have enough flexibility around the transit time that is required for an intermodal transportation? Uh, And would that see your main intermodal, if it's based on rail, there is of course, even assuming a significantly efficient rail model compared to what the government is well, Indian Railways is able to run right now, it would still be multi-day transport, right? Many days. So in terms of the types of materials being transported, the volumes of goods being moved, is it is it raw material that we are looking at? Is it finished goods? And which type of material would benefit from your solution more?
So I think after the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a boom in the e-commerce sector because most of the Indian customers are used to ordering products online, and because of that, there's been an increase in the number of returns of products too, which adds on to the carbon footprint. Therefore, our proposed solutions would majorly have an impact in the e-commerce sector because there it can have a direct impact through the customers, through the involvement of the customers too.
Okay. No, Abhinav, my question was specifically to the use of intermodal because that's your primary chosen investment area, right? Um, do you anticipate enough, commerce which can wait 10 days, 15 days for goods to reach their destination?
So that was one of our points. For the successful implementation, there has to be precision scheduling, as mentioned, as done by Schneider's intermodal solutions. So in this, there are a bunch of things we thought about how we could carry out a proper intermodal shift. It included stuff like dedicated freight corridors and setting up necessary infrastructure dedicated to movement of fast movement of freight. So if that is set up, and there has to be warehouses near, there has to be improved warehousing near rail yards, and you need to set up initiatives like this. And given that the government and the railways wants to move forward with this, they do want to move forward. They have recently, I think, the railways has shown interest towards commercial side of movement of freight. So given that there is an interest towards this area, and I think it is a great place to be explored, and that is what is going to happen in the next few years.
Also, like the government had a warehousing policy, so like they are already planning to build warehousing zones, so that supports our initiative. And also there are now like slowly there are AI-based solutions coming up which basically predict what a customer would be requiring. So that is a great way to be pre-prepared for delivery of such of any e-commerce goods.
Awesome.
I would, sorry.
And
I would
again,
add
guys, so the key part is, see, some of the things that you talked around, the warehousing parks and other things, where the government is playing the role of an enabler, the opportunity for private parties to build efficiencies and use the best tools and to bring efficiencies is great. The one question I'll again keep coming back to is Indian Railways is still going to be run by Indian Railways, right? Freight is where the railways makes money, and that's how it subsidizes passenger traffic, right? So freight is still cheaper compared to other modes, but it's very unorganized. You could at best get a confirmation that hey, the train or rake that you have asked for will probably come in the next 3 to 4 days for you to move your goods. If you have that level of confirmation, would Schneider's precision scheduling help you guys, right? I'll leave you at that. I don't need an answer because the key obviously needs for your aspirational strategies is, of course, every participant needs to do their bit, right? And we have to hope that the railways can also do their bit in significantly improving their logistical capabilities, right? Saurabh, any last questions?
Oh, I'm good. This was a very intense discussion. I think, yeah, and I think we are good with the understanding which the team had to present.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, excellent. So now we can move on to the next presentation. So team 13, now you can raise your hand. I will give you access.
Good morning.
Team 13, all your participants are on the stage, right? Hello?
Hello, I am audible.
There is one participant who's not there. Okay, yeah.
What's the name? So please raise your hand, whoever is not there.
Okay, I'll ask him to raise it.
Yeah, Abhishek Singh, right?
Yeah, Abhishek, correct.
So now we are ready to go. I have sent an invite. Abhishek, you can accept my request. I have sent you the invite.
Okay.
Yeah, so now we can start, I guess.
He's still not here.
Now we are ready to go.
Actually, he's still not here. Abhishek Singh.
I have sent him the request. Actually, I've sent him the request, but he's not accepting from his side.
Okay, just a second.
Okay,
I'll call him. Hello?
Yeah. Just ask him to accept the request. Yeah. So now I guess all the 5 participants are on the stage. Shivang, I guess we can start.
Okay. Okay. So shall we start?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We are representing Team 13, and here we propose the ESG model, Environmental, Social, and Governance model for supply chain for the problem statement in this Blue Yonder Sustainable Supply Chain Challenge. So let's get started. On to Zafar.
Thank you, Shivang. Before understanding the problem and discussing the solution, let's first understand what is carbon footprint. We all keep hearing a lot about climate change and how we should reduce our carbon footprint. But what exactly that is? Just like an actual footprint, it's a mark we leave upon the environment, not with our shoes, but with every action that releases carbon. These are harmful gases such as carbon dioxide, which are pumped out by burning fossil fuels like oil or gases. The more fuel you burn, the bigger our footprint will be. We may think that by driving a car, the only carbon that release comes from the engine, but no. Consider carbon that are emitted just to get fuel into the tank. From the energy needed to extract the oil from underground, the pollution caused by transportation and refinement all contributes to the carbon footprint. Since we have got a little understanding on the carbon footprint, let's see how the carbon footprint from an e-commerce point of view. Post the pandemic, the e-commerce business is growing fast. Due to the surge in the e-commerce business, there has been an increase in packaging of the products for delivery, more number of last mile deliveries, and also rising returns. These 3 areas have majorly contributed to the increase in e-commerce carbon footprint. According to a Forbes report, these are the contributing factors you can see on the screen to the carbon emission in an e-commerce business. Here, the packaging level emission contributes the highest and it tops the list. Further, if we see On an average, the amount of carbon produced per item handled, last mile transportation, added packaging, and increased returns are the highest contributor. Before moving ahead, let's stop and have a look into a typical supply chain model for the e-commerce business. It starts with receiving the inventory from the suppliers. Then the inventory needs to be stored. And once an order is received, the chain proceeds to sorting, packaging, and shipping the goods. In the whole process, the company has to provide customer services for responding to queries, and in case if there is a return, that too has to be managed in a reverse supply chain way. The, the model that we have seen here works well. However, there are certain limitations to this. One of the major challenges here is the high carbon emission. Also, there are challenges of low recycling capacity and inefficient control of the extensive supply chain network, low recycling, and unsustainable product life cycle management. Over to Shivang, you can take
It
it
is of
forward.
utmost importance for us to consider the critical factors contributing to carbon footprint in the supply chain of e-commerce sector. The first contributing factor is added packaging. Added packaging accounts for 45% of total carbon emissions in the supply chain, and these packages are made mainly from plastic, paper, and cardboard, which emit 3.4 kilogram, 0.65 kilogram, and 0.94 kilogram of CO2 for manufacturing each kg of material respectively. Next. Another major accompanying factor is the last mile transportation. By 2030, a 36% rise in delivery vehicles is predicted as compared to 2019, adding on to extra 6 metric tons of CO2, thereby creating an increase of 21% of congestion. Next, finally, the last important factor holding its share in carbon footprint is the increasing returns. Increasing returns share a quarter of total carbon emissions due to supply chain. Further, it has been found in 40% of the surveys that easy returns is the deciding factor for customers to go with a specific e-commerce company. Additionally, 60% of the orders are returned back in a period of 12 months, and 80% of customers tend to review return policy of the product before purchasing it. So, owing to all these factors, I shall pass on Abhishek to take you forward with the solution.
Thanks, Shivang. So let's talk about our solution. What can be better than leveraging an existing network and boosting the economy at the same time while building the sustainable supply chain? Our model gives us an opportunity to come closer to this and create a network of modern tech-enabled post offices as the ESG model of supply chain for India. Next. Let's consider the packaging problem first. Customized packaging takes more time for recycling to make it available, as the manufacturer has to wait to receive the actual packaging of the particular product to use it. This could mean more resources into it, in fact, more maintenance time, more space, more warehouses and their maintenance, and thus adding more to the carbon footprint. The companies will have to procure fresh packaging every time to avoid the bottleneck. Here we propose the implementation of approved universal packaging for similar kind of products. Any company which will be getting recycled packaging will be able to use it and will not have to wait for the packaging of its own. It will heavily reduce the carbon footprint for these companies. Also, the e-commerce companies that will be delivering these goods will be using standard packaging for all such kind of products. It will further help the e-commerce companies in their recycling and also help in their better shipment and management of products or goods. Next. Coming to our solution for the last mile transportation and increased returns, we propose the public-private partnership, the ESG, environmental, social, governance model of sustainable supply chain. India's postal network is the largest postal network in the world, with more than 1.5 lakh post offices, and post office serves an area of 21.22 square kilometer and a population of 8,000 people. Our model leverages this network and equips it with modern infrastructure and IoT technologies as a provider of comprehensive supply chain services for the entire e-commerce industry. This will reduce the e-commerce emissions due to logistics and returns and also improve operational efficiency of the provider. We believe that this model can optimize the cost of last mile logistics significantly, and this can be quantified on a pilot project case study. Next. The features of this model are strategic placement of modern post office with mobile warehouses, IT infrastructure, transportation with non-diesel vehicles such as EVs, drones, etc. It can handle any last mile delivery, handle returns, packaging, and act as a collection center for the end of life products. To achieve this, we need a proper strategic action plan. The e-commerce industry can enter in partnership with the Government of India to leverage India's postal network as a provider of last mile logistics. Some of the responsibilities from private sector are investment in modernization of post offices, providing electric vehicles, non-diesel vehicles, drones, and software support, recruitment, training, and skilling of employees in post offices. The responsibilities from the public sector are providing policy support and the governance of modern postal network. Using the PPP model proposed above, the last mile logistics, returns, and extra packaging can all be reduced significantly, and the carbon footprint of the overall supply chain can be reduced. Over to Abhishek.
A policy is as good as its implementation. So here we propose a three-stage implementation action plan. The stage 1 is about policy formulation during the first year. In this stage, NAWCI should work with the Government of India for preparing the policy framework and enter into a PPP contract. This will create an enabling legal and regulatory framework for the initiative. Stage 2 is about the pilot study during the second year. Here we propose to build model post offices in selected clusters like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Calcutta. After 1 year, NAWCI should conduct a comprehensive study of pre and post intervention periods to quantify the impacts on carbon emissions, costs, and logistics efficiency. Stage 3 is about strategic implementation. Based on the findings of the study, we propose to expand the model at the national level in the year 3, 4, and 5, covering almost all post offices of the country. On its effective implementation, this constructive disruption will give birth to the world's largest postal-based sustainable supply chain. Next. Talking about why our solution, our proposed model 3P, public-private partnership, the ESG model of supply chain is in sync with other 3P, the triple bottom line framework, planet, people, and profit. For the private sector, it will help to achieve logistics efficiency, faster delivery, and market penetration in unserved and underserved areas. For the public sector, it will help to tap the private capital and advanced technologies for the modernization of the post offices, achieve sustainable development goals, and COP26 climate targets. For the customers, it can facilitate ease of delivery and returns and an enriched omni-channel shopping experience. Thus, our model has the potential to reduce supply chain costs and carbon emissions by building a unique, integrated, and sustainable supply chain for the entire e-commerce industry of India. Over to Shantan for vision and impact.
Well, it is of the essence to have a precursory glance at the goals in context of both short and long-term ones. When it comes to short-term goals, our focus is on three fins. The first one is about cost efficiency. When alongside our proposed solution, strategies pertaining to added packaging and last mile transportation are implemented, one can discern that there are numerous benefits in context of cost efficiency that come with it. The second point being about reduction in lead time. With local post offices actually catering to demands in their vicinity, there would be a significant reduction in the lead time as opposed to distant warehouses in the current scenario, as in where the warehouses are located far off and are much larger in size. Well, this brings us to the third point. It is about improved warehouse management. With changes in distribution center strategy, moving on to a more micro inventory based distribution center, there is a potential for better management and traceability with regards to inventory and warehouse. Well, we see that these objectives can be achieved anon with little effort after a solution is implemented. But on a longer term basis, these are goals that are germane to our solutions that can be pigeonholed into 5 different groups. First is about advancement of post offices and areas abutting it technologically. The second one being about substantial reduction in carbon emission. Well, it is one of our primary goals. The next 2 points are a bit difficult to understand, but these are first being companies moving to a more packaging neutral approach. Over time, what would happen is that with more recycled and controlled packaging, companies would adopt a packaging neutral marketing approach that would lead to products being the selling point and not the packaging. The fourth point was about self-sustaining local supply chain near each post office. Each post office, or what will be then a warehouse in a longer stage, can trigger more business growth and thereby bolster the local network, preventing a supply chain failure in case of any adversity that occurs locally, such as maybe a load block or a local protest, etc. The last point well, this is also important, is about increased local employment owing to local post offices employing multitudes of people in different jobs. Next slide, please. Well, with the model having immense potential that is waiting to be unlocked, our vision is a broad spectrum one. With Aplomb, we have vested our vision over a dozen of checkpoints. First being equipping 90% of post offices in India with the required infrastructure to be able to handle our SCM. Second, being about complete transition to mobile warehousing alongside data centralization for real-time updates. Also, increased coverage to second and third tier as well as rural areas is also important. Well, this is all going on using data collected to make ML models for integrating multitudes of data to analyze and act upon is also one of the important parts of our vision. Next slide, please. Well, with a solution that is both practical and theoretically feasible, the major bottleneck now comes down to the goodwill of people who are in positions of power and are the faces for such changes. But history has proven that changes start from small stage, and now the onus is on us to start changes by creating awareness amongst people we hobnob with, moving on to greener and environmental friendly products, and making a small pledge to ourselves the next time we order online. It is to not order whatever we need and whenever we need, but only to order what we need and when we need. Thank you.
So are we open for questions?
Yeah.
So you presented the long-term approach and short-term approach. So given that in short term there is cost efficiency and lead time reductions, etc. So how would you certify or validate that these approaches which you have given are uh, you know uh, kind of giving the returns as expected? What is that criteria? Any model which you have put for that?
So let me take this question. We have proposed a pilot study in the second year action plan. So what we'll do is that we will select some clusters, let's say Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, and Bangalore, where all the post offices will be modernized with the IT infrastructure, with electric vehicles and drones, skilled human resource. And after 1 year, we'll do a comparative study. What was the impact in the previous year, and what is the impact after the implementation of the pilot project? And we believe that there will be optimization of delivery costs, logistics, and returns, and all those things can be studied. So based
How
on
would
that
you,
pilot study,
yeah.
we expect.
So Abhishek, how would you baseline it? That what is the optimum? What would be that criteria against which you will be benchmarking or you will be targeting? It is whether it is last mile delivery or it is packaging or it is efficiency or through the post offices or the cost which is reduced through post offices.
So we can compare the prevalent models which are going on, and on the basis of that, we can maybe select the optimized model for that. But this is since a new proposal, a new initiative, so we need to first do some field study and then talk
Okay.
about based on the
Okay.
data.
Fair.
Further adding on to it, we can study the we can have the models which are followed internationally, globally, and we can say when implemented globally how the carbon reduction have been there in a year or in a couple of years, and taking that as a standard, we can try to implement these things and keep a check on our model and our implementation plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, great ideas, guys. So I heard content around improved packaging, the importance of returns, and from what I understand, your whole strategy is pivoted around India Post, correct? Okay. So this strategy for India Post is not just for returns, but it's actually all logistics, right? From manufacturer
Yes,
to
sir.
the customer, and then back from the customer to the disease, etc. Is that right?
Yes, sir. It can act as a collection centers for e-waste as well in the future, and packaging and all sorts of things. So our vision is the post offices to be the modern warehouses equipped with electric vehicles, drones, and doing all sorts of all those interventions to be implemented at the post office level to
Okay.
leverage
So
its potential.
why is India Post not already doing all of this?
Well, let me take that question.
Uh, so there are challenges. Yes.
What happens is there has to be the both sides, the government as well as the post office has to agree to this, as well as the private, because we proposed a PPP model. So all the three parties have to agree to that. Well, now the public is ready to accept that, but what happens is there is not an agreement between the government and the private sector as to have this kind of a relation together. Once both the government and the private come together, see the kind of feasibility of this model. There has not yet been a feasibility check of this model exactly. Once there is a feasibility check, this can be approved, and I am sure that such a kind of a model would be coming up. But as of now, as there is no kind of agreement between both of these parties, so there is not a model right now.
How
Adding
would you guys split the public and private portion of this overall network? What is the private participation you're envisioning?
Let me take that question. So the private here will provide the logistics, the skilled uh, uh, people, and the software support and the non-diesel vehicles, while the public sector will provide the infrastructure and the policy support and the governance of the models.
What do you mean by infrastructure here?
The existing warehouses, the existing post offices, if necessary at a strategic center, they can provide us with bigger post offices, or it can all be done on the basis of the pilot case study.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're saying you want to use the buildings and nothing much more. Because the India Post has basically buildings, it has cycles, and it has postmen who ride those cycles, which is not a particularly efficient logistics net. They also have some 20 years.
Exactly.
Okay. So you're saying now this private participation, you're looking at it at a national level, or is this going to be a completely distributed, regional, license-based empowerment, etc.?
That will be totally based on our pilot case study. Like we intend to first place the modern post offices at strategic centers where most of the returns happen, and the distribution happens in the metropolitan cities. And seeing the efficiency and predictions on the based on this model, we tend to either expand it throughout the India, or keep it at only strategic levels where it is required.
Okay. So last question from my side, fundamentally around this strategy, right? Market forces have been known to be the best way to bring efficiency, competition, price point advantage, and innovation. Why are we moving towards a centralized single service provider model for bringing efficiencies, innovation, and cost reduction, as well as more social good driven objectives?
Let me take that question. So, in public-private partnership, the basic principle is that there will be sharing of the rewards and the benefits. So, there are areas underserved and non-served areas where e-commerce is penetrating at a faster rate. Let's say rural areas of India, where maybe a private sector will not be incentivized to expand its logistics business there, but government will definitely do that. So, so this is kind of a win-win situation for the government as well as the private sector, and we believe that this thing is going to optimize the cost for both.
And further adding to Abhishek's words, that in the past few years, we have significantly seen India's participation or the government's participation in uplifting private equities, private market, and private companies, and making the startup culture as well as innovation a boom. So with this incremental thing, if we see the trend going on, it's ever increasing in this time. So if we implement this program, so government will be happy to adopt it, and this will be a manageable part, as Abhishek suggested. Another part is that India has pledged in COP26, uh, happened last year. So based on that, India will be or the government would be moving towards generating effects or taking steps that would help us to reduce carbon emissions. So
Can
if
I add?
with their intervention, if this can be achieved, they would be very happy to make a collaboration between the two. Yeah.
Can I add one point here? See, market forces play an important role in bringing efficiency and in bringing in innovation. But I'll give one example. If you see that there's a water supply system, so and there's an electricity distribution system. So in both of them, you see there are same players. There's just one player who is working, because setting up an infrastructure is very costly thing. Now we want to set up a distribution or a reverse logistics system. So in India, we already are having an extensive network of post offices. Won't it be better to leverage that network for the entire supply chain, rather than every new market player, new company coming in, setting up their own system, putting up costs and adding to carbon footprint? Won't it be better to have a centralized network that's already existing?
Yeah. So, guys, this is great. Like, I think you guys have thought through on why you want this approach, and towards Zafar and Abhishek and others said, right, there are approximately 150,000 post offices across 35 states and union territories. So it's a big setup infrastructure in place. So only two follow-up and last questions from me. Somebody said that we don't want we also would go to the private sector for the people to operate this supply chain. Why that decision? And secondly, I have been hearing through many sources on press and internet that Amazon is very tightly collaborating with the post offices till now. Have you done any research on how successful it has been till now? Maybe for Amazon or maybe for other bigger retailers. Any responses from any one of you on these 2 points?
So we have not done the case study of Amazon collaborating with the post offices. So we need to go back and look into it.
One thing that we know about is Amazon has got into a deal for pickup and drop off of orders, but and that's they are working on. But here we propose to move a bit further from that and handle more and more things from that, using the entire network of post office to do almost everything that we do, bringing things back, storing it over there, sending it back.
And as Suman was pointing out, you only propose to use the infrastructure, not the processes and the people from post offices, or it's the other way, that you will utilize the entire system itself.
So let me take that question. So during the pilot study, we would be analyzing what will be the most efficient way to implement this. So there can be two ways, right? So one, we can have a private entity completely, just the infrastructure from the government and people and everything from the private. And another thing, we can have the technology from the private and infrastructure and people, like people from the government adding on the people from the private as well. So in this pilot study, we'll analyze which part is the most efficient amongst the
Okay.
two.
Got it. Yeah.
And this will yield the perfect results, as nothing can be better than experimentations. So that would yield exceptional results, and which will help us to decide as to which way we need to go.
Okay. Thank you, Team 13. Good job.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
You can raise your hand, team number 8 members. Um, Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So team number 8, now you can come for the presentation. You can raise your hand.
So for my clarity, this is team 8, which will be presenting now, correct?
Yes, this is team 8. This
Uh,
is the laptop.
am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. Wait.
Wait, I'm adding your team members. Just give me a minute. Please give me 2 minutes. There's some network issue from my side.
Yeah, just wait for 2 minutes. There's some network issue from here. Just wait for 2 minutes. That's all. I guess now the participants are on the stage.
Hello. You see that, right?
Yes.
So there's one more participant. Oh, okay. All are there, right? Yeah, got it.
Okay, so now you can just start your presentation. Just
Entire screen.
yeah. So teammate, now you can start your presentation.
Yeah, just doing it.
Can we start presenting?
Yes, you can start.
All right. So, a very good morning to the distinguished judges and all fellow participants present here. We are Team 8 and we will be presenting our solutions for the problem statement by Blue Yonder on sustainable supply chain. We will be covering the following points through our presentation and explain how our solutions address the problems and can be implemented profitably to make the supply chain more sustainable. During the pandemic, retail services shifted to a digital model either through e-commerce giants or by developing their own D2C platforms, which is reflected in the industry growth rate of 27%. In the past 2 years, the user adoption for online retail has grown by 36% year over year. With the rise in the volume of e-commerce orders, the carbon footprint grew, and the projections indicate that it is only going to rise further if left unchecked. We, Team 8, through our presentation, are aiming to address this increase in carbon emissions and have come up with a detailed solution in warehousing, packaging, and transport, backed with concrete research and calculations. Primary emissions in warehousing are due to usage of non-renewable sources of electricity, and it is unoptimized consumption. All items are packed and unpacked multiple times through the logistics chain. This leads to wastage of resources, as only a fraction of these packaging materials are recycled, while the majority ends up in landfills. Transportation is an integral part of supply chain and has the highest carbon footprint contribution.
We identified usage of fossil fuel-based vehicles and failure in first attempt delivery and returns as major problems. Our solutions are listed on this slide. Let's dive into the presentation and discuss these solutions in detail. Starting with solutions in warehousing, we have cold storage ducting or storage shelves. Our research concluded that cold storage of perishable commodities in warehousing accounts for 30% of the energy consumption. To minimize this percentage and use power more efficiently, we have come up with a solution to cool the shelves where the goods are stored directly by installing ducts to these shelves. Our calculations show that implementing this solution would reduce the electricity consumption and cooling by 40% and save more than 63 tons of CO2 emissions per year. Next up, we have solar paneling of warehouses across the country. Solar power is one of the most reliable renewable energy sources, and it might seem like a widely implemented solution to all. However, various reports by MNCs and government divisions show that only 3.5 gigawatt of cumulative solar capacity has been installed in the nation, which indicates that almost 91% of the capacity is still left unutilized. Harnessing this energy and installing two-phase meters, which allow warehouses to switch between solar and power grid, can help produce 36,000 electric power units per month and save 33 tons of carbon emissions per month. Adding another floor to existing facilities instead of building new warehouses or building new multi-story facilities helps save forest cover. Calculations show that it proves to be economically more viable for corporations by saving nearly 40% of capital costs than buying a larger land area.
The number of corrugated cardboard boxes crossed 1.3 billion across the country in 2020. These cardboard boxes are of no use once the delivery is done. But what if these boxes reached back the packaging facilities where they could be reused? Yes, this can be done by incentivizing customers to promote the cardboard box returns. Cardboard boxes can be collected by the delivery men during next delivery. Boxes can be flattened and can be stored in the local hubs, and from there, they can be transported to the nearest packaging facilities. Even since the life of the box degrades with every delivery, companies can even shed those boxes and after a fixed number of usage and use them as filler material, as we can see in the picture. Something similar was tried by B2C startup Big Basket in 2017. They urged the customers to return the cardboard packaging and they recycled it. Also, a survey was conducted in which we found that more than 50% of the customers throw away their cardboard boxes, while more than 86% of the customers were willing to return these boxes for some incentives. Even our team connected with delivery personals to note their views on it, and we can confirm that their views are positive. Now, coming on to the B2b Logistics Phase. At present, cardboard boxes are the most prevalent packaging material and are usually discarded after a single use. According to the research by Fraunhofer Institute, reusable containers have a lesser carbon footprint than disposable cardboard boxes. The solution that we have come up is a reusable and foldable aluminum container that can be implemented using a depot system. We have considered GE Healthcare for a case study as well. They can use our box to transport the products to their warehouse. The boxes are folded and stored in the warehouse so that a huge amount of these boxes can be transported back to the manufacturing plant. The number of empty boxes that can be transported is increased by its foldability, and this compensates for carbon emissions in return logistics. We're also glad to share that this model is already implemented in the GE Healthcare plant at Bangalore. Our next step to this would be a nationwide pooling system for containers. The graphs on the left depict change in manufacturing cost and carbon footprint over next 6 years of implementation of reusing B2C packaging. On the right, we have graphs depicting cost and CO2 breakeven for B2B packaging, comparing aluminum and cardboard boxes.
Next, we have the transportation solutions. First is the nighttime delivery. Traffic congestion in metros leads to more CO2 emissions, adding delivery time. Also, the failure rate of first attempted deliveries in India is about 3%. Thus comes into picture the nighttime delivery, in which customers living in apartments can receive their orders even at night. We propose smart lockers that can be accessed only by delivery personnel and customers. This would save about 1.25 million ton CO2 in Tier 1 cities while adding 35% efficiency to the delivery string and providing a cost benefit of 9.78 billion rupees to the industry. In over 4 to 5 years, it will be extended to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Second is the EVs as last mile fleet. In the long run, EVs can be an efficient way to tackle this problem in the last mile delivery. We already have an established network of e-rickshaw in some cities, which can be utilized for last mile deliveries. As we can see from the graph on the left side, carbon emissions are reduced by 80% if we use EVs in place of traditional bikes. And similarly, we can see that the running cost of EVs is almost one third of ICE EVs. Break even will be achieved in roughly 14 months. EVs have more holding capacity than a traditional delivery bike. The central government announced a goal to transition from new state of ICE EVs to 100% plug-in electric vehicles by 2030. We can have a private player or government agency that owns EVs and they can rent it out at subsidized rates to drivers to promote net zero emission delivery.
The e-commerce industry in India is currently receiving returns against 80% of the total online purchase goods, costing e-commerce giants a whopping $50 billion every year. In our next solution, we aim to create a centralized return shipment service platform in a public-private model with India Post. We propose to create a network of drop-off returns locations in India, including in partner retail stores and post offices in metro cities and every pin code in the country. Dropping off return parcels to pickup points could potentially reduce the CO2 emissions in last mile parcel delivery networks. Each parcel delivered through a pickup point removes one address visited by the vehicle from the home delivery network, thus generally decreasing the number of vehicle kilometers driven for the deliveries. Our solution also disincentivizes customers from placing unnecessary returns but also incentivizes them by giving immediate refund at drop off points. It benefits all stakeholders in the process. It saves costs for e-commerce platforms by processing returns at 50% lesser cost, benefits India Post by creating an alternative revenue stream, and partner retail drop-off points by increasing customer footfall. We've projected that our solution will decrease return shipments by 25%, creating a net negative carbon impact of 20 million tons of CO2 every year. Our 5-year plan is based on the centralization of supply chain for D2C and e-commerce products in India in a public-private model. We aim to create one grid for the distribution of the goods. What if Tata Power and Adani Power had their own separate electric lines to supply electricity to homes? It would have been a mess, right? Therefore, just like electricity distribution, a common grid is necessary for the effective distribution of goods across the country. Developing this infrastructure from scratch in a short period would be unrealistic. So why not make use of the elephant in the room? That is India Post. Why India Post? With more than 155,000 post offices, the Department of Postal Service has most widely distributed postal network in the world. It has underutilized manpower of postmen and widespread warehouse infrastructure. It owns and has access to railway cargo network and massive transportation fleets. Despite all the infrastructure, India Post reported losses worth 15,000 crores in 2019. Thus, our 5-year plan aims to monetize these underutilized assets of India Post. As the e-commerce industry grows, the need for warehousing space grows. India Post could lead its underutilized warehouses to third-party logistics service provider. The huge trained workforce of India Post is not working at its peak efficiency due to the low volume of orders. As a result, colossal salary sums are paid without generating much revenue. India Post could outsource these employees to third-party logistics providers. We propose a 5-year plan for implementing these solutions in the western zone of the nation in phase 1, northern and southern zone in the second phase, and eastern zone in phase 3. The graph shows revenue generated for India Post per annum after implementing each phase. The graph on the right shows minimized losses upon adopting our monetization plan after phase 3. We propose a third-party model to implement our solutions in a phase-wise manner. In the first phase, we introduce nighttime delivery feature. We partner with apartments in Tier 1 cities to set up our smart storage boxes. In phase 2, we propose to create a central business model that handles returns for all e-commerce platforms by leveraging India Post infrastructure. We later develop a QR-based software for verifying returns and identify retail stores as potential drop-off points. In the final phase, after generating decent revenue through reverse logistics optimization, our model can further invest in deploying EVs for last mile forward deliveries. Our proposed centralized grid can take up forward deliveries through the India Post network.
Now let us see how e-commerce firms can adopt our solutions. First, we implement the minimum investment solution of reusing cardboard boxes. In the second phase, we introduce B2b aluminum packaging, followed by solar paneling and cold storage ducting. Finally, the e-commerce companies can use the central reverse logistics network that would be set up by then with the help of India Post. Capital-intensive solution like multi-story warehousing can be implemented in phase 3.
Our strategies align with the vision of various policies rolled out by the Government of India in recent years. The asset monetization pipeline of the Indian government can be used to build a public-private model. Private players will be investing in upgrading the current infrastructure to implement solutions proposed earlier. Investing in EVs will be profitable in the long run for private companies under government schemes like Shunya and Gati Shakti scheme. In 2019, India imported 81 billion rupees worth of paper pulp. Reducing the usage of cardboard containers aligns with the government's aim of lowering foreign inputs. This is a win-win situation for the government, companies, and customers. We can proudly say that our solutions aim to achieve the following UN's SDGs. Our cost and ESG analysis projects a net negative carbon impact of 2.3 million tons of CO2 every year and saves 61 billion rupees annually by implementing previous solutions. Thank you.
Hello team, very good presentation. Thank you for that. Very organized, and you've covered multiple aspects. So again, same question to you, like we've asked as a team. What is your central proposal? You've talked about a three-pronged problem. Are you suggesting a three-pronged solution, or have you identified one more strategically impactful area compared to the others?
So, hi team. I think I'll reiterate question. First,
yes, sir.
Yeah. So how would you go about it? What comes first, and then followed by the rest?
Yes, sir. So coming on to the question, like we have implemented a three-phase solution, right? Like we have implemented the solution in the warehousing, transportation, and packaging phase. But if we see as an overall statement, our centralized theme is using or leveraging Indian Post as a centralized, entity for logistics. And the reason is, again, India Post has a huge amount of infrastructure already available. The personals are already available. And if you can see, the solutions that we have proposed can be well integrated with the working of Indian Post as a central entity. For example, Indian Post has already implemented digital locker in villages that can well comply with the nighttime deliveries that we are proposing. Whereas, if you talk about the warehousing and ducting, so again, Indian Post has infrastructure that can cater to multiple locations. So what we are proposing is that even Amazon and Flipkart and other e-commerce players, they can come in, invest on the warehouses of Indian Post and use this infrastructure to build their own network. So we are not proposing that Indian Post itself will do everything, but it should be a private public relationship to continue the momentum forward. And even if we talk about another solution, that is centralizing the entire last mile, that can well verse with centralizing or electrifying the last mile fleet. So government has already a campaign named Shunya, and that is aimed at making the last mile fleet electrified. So as a central entity, if we have this, it will be more efficiently and more beneficial to implement these ideas in a shorter time period. So that's what I hope I'm able to clear up the.
And just adding to that and answering what comes first. So we'll just manage all the reverse logistics in the first phase and generate decent amount of revenue to cater to the forward deliveries and make those deliveries more efficient.
Okay, I'll go to a slightly different topic. You presented the idea for ducting. So, what uh, evaluation has been done compared to what additional ducting has to be done for the racks compared to warehousing entire warehouse, and what is the cost benefit analysis?
If I'm getting the question right, you are asking us to present calculations, right? On what basis are we?
Yeah, maybe top three
putting those
points,
numbers?
like why you think that would be more efficient, and might be like it could be carbon negative.
All right. Not diving right into the calculations. I'll say that currently how a cold storage works is that they have a cold storage room where the entire room is cool and items are placed inside the room. And we see that there are huge passages left for moving freight in those rooms. So what our solution proposes is that those shells to be ducted and cold air to be directly supplied to these goods. And naturally, there will be diffusion as these shells are not closed. But that will help us save electricity as the whole room need not be cooled. We also have calculations from where we are showing quoting those numbers, and I would be glad to present those as well if you're interested.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so there is investment required to obviously modernize the India Post infrastructure, right? I mean, you guys were very clear that you wanted to use the warehousing capability, you wanted to repurpose the resources, right? Which is the staff that's on board, etc. I mean, we can look at the staffing side as, are we rescuing India Post like we rescued Air India, or are we actually thinking that they are actually good at what they are doing, all right? That's a question you guys can maybe fit into your answer. But my key question is whether you talk about EVs or even the backend logistics network of connecting the post offices, etc. One question: where does the money come from? Who is the investor, and why will they invest?
Yes, sir. So we have clearly mentioned that India Post is definitely not good at what they are doing currently because they are the largest loss-making entity from the government. So what we are proposing is again a private-public partnership. Now the investment will come from two fronts, both the government itself and the private players itself. Now, why a private player would invest on Indian Post? The first reason is they have extensive warehouses, right? Now, if I am a company, let's suppose an X company, I am playing in the e-commerce logistic phase, I need to build my own warehouses. But I don't need to do that because there is already a warehouse existing of the Indian Post. So it's more profitable for me to actually invest on that warehouse, upgrade it, and use it for my purpose. And similarly, like for the last mile that we are again talking about, Indian Post already has a huge work fleet, and that work fleet gets a huge amount of salary, whereas the workload is very less. So why not use these personals to actually, deliver the parcels in the last mile delivery? So this is the investment that comes from the private part, right? From the public part, government is also incentivizing Indian Post to actually improve on the part, because Indian Post is already making laws. So it is important for government to invest and train the workforces, make a better pipeline for the logistics, uh, and also government has invested in the Gati Shakti scheme, and that can be leveraged to the use of Indian Post itself, right? That
Okay.
can help Indian Post move the fleet, move the logistics more efficiently. So maybe not direct investment from the government, on all parts of Indian Post. Some part of investment is definitely needed from government, maybe on training the personnels, maybe on upgrading the warehouses. But again, most of the investment that we are talking about is from the private players who will come in for the private partner relationship.
So they've one follow up on this.
Yes.
So US Postal Service, you talked about the workforce, right?
Yeah.
They have a 650,000 workforce right now. Why do you think that these private parties in the most developed nation are not utilizing a government network? And why do we think that it would be possible in India if it is not even possible in US? Okay, I think I'm not looking, it was just like, afterthought. So I'm not looking for an answer here, but something to think about. Right?
Yeah. So, sir, you definitely mentioned the US Postal Service that it is not able to do that. But we have gone through a case study of the Postal Service of Singapore, which actually does this. They have implemented this concept in their country and it has been hugely successful. Right. Now, coming on to maybe in US, there may be a capitalist force that comes into play, but that is not quite accurate in Indian context. So we cannot really, in our opinion, like compare the postal service of US with the Indian postal service, to do the same job. But again, we can look at the models that we already exist. So we have a proof that this model can work, and that is given by the postal service of Singapore.
Yeah, just think about it. Okay. So
Yeah, very interesting point actually, Saurabh, right? Sorry for the digression, right? USPS, given that it's part government, is inherently supposed to be loss making because they have a social commitment, right? Nobody pays for the social aspect, so that is fine. The key thing is USPS does invest in significant supply chain logistical optimization. They actually use some of our software to improve their network, right? So your example of Singapore's Post again is spot on. The change leadership that needs to come in to bring that transformation is where it's key, right? So are you guys saying that India Post would still say public, or are you talking privatization, or you're hoping some happy medium will be found?
So right now we are proposing the midway, private public partnership.
Okay.
Because it's firstly it's one of the largest entity that is owned by government, and you cannot privatize it like in an instant. But right now, if you talk about the 5-year plan, then a private public partnership would be the best way to go about it.
Thank you, team. I think this was a very good discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, team. So now I would like team 9 to present their presentation. Just please raise your hand. I will give you access.
So shall we take a 3 or 4 minute break while the people set themselves up?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so we will take 5 minutes break and we'll start with team 9 from 11:10.
Excellent. Thank you.
Till that, you can raise your hand, team number 9 participants. Team 9, I have added all your participants on the stage. Can you please check if anyone is missing? Or
Yes, we are all on stage.
okay, so we'll start your presentation right at 11:10.
Sure.
Now we can start the presentation. Now we can start the presentation.
Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. Our team ID is 9, and we will be presenting our approach towards a sustainable supply chain. Can you go to the next slide? So, myself, Siram Pawan, and I will be dealing with the identification and analysis of the problem. So, the following are the set of products which we have analyzed for supply chain management, which includes food and beverages, personal care, health supplements, paper and stationery, household supplies, and well-being products. So all these products follow majorly two supply chain models in India. The first one is the traditional supply chain, which starts from plant to distribution center and distribution center to retailer and retailer to the customer. And the second mode is e-commerce based supply chain, which follows plant to distribution center and distribution center to the customer. Next slide. So talking about the issues of current supply chain model, the first one about the e-commerce supply chain mode. So e-commerce delivers different products of different sizes and shapes through transportation. But the product's packaging plays an important role in the space utilization to pack the product and transport. Even small products are being packed with larger boxes, which are causing increase in the volume. So, due to these irregular sizes of packages, there will be higher voidage in the last mile transportation, which is leading to the underutilization of space and increasing the carbon footprint. Talking about the traditional supply chain mode, in in this the customer might get the product from the retailer by traveling through higher average distances, which again increases the carbon footprint. Next slide. So now we present you our solution on how to tackle all the earlier discussed problems. It's integrated marketplace. So it's a virtual platform which lists the products available in particular city or town by connecting the local retailers and local warehouses of e-commerce platforms. Next slide. The main features of this app are based on three criteria. Like the first one is based on the products that customer wishes to purchase. So he will use the integrated marketplace so that it provides the insights in which the customer can use the optimized route so that he can minimize his travel and reduce the carbon footprint. And the e-commerce websites can also take part in this by providing data which can be used to figure out whether that particular product is available in local marketplace, but it is still being purchased in large numbers by people of that city. So the e-commerce websites can have local warehouses and these house those particular products here. They can either tie up with existing retailer shops and they can use these warehouses, or they can even create their own local store if they have space which is large. And at the later stage, we will be having eco-friendly and user-friendly option of home delivery, where optimized home delivery will lead to lesser travel and hence decrease in carbon footprint. Eventually, packaging can also be reduced. And I hand over to Samir.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I am Samir Ranjan and I'll present the impact of a model. So, in a model, we have tweaked the existing chain. We observe that our model has no negative impact and on the impact on the current chain, and we can have a positive effect on two crucial carbon emitting aspects. The first one is transportation, and the second one is packaging. We believe these two are essential for sustainability of a supply chain model. Next slide, please. Transportation. In the present COVID scenario, the e-commerce industry has boomed, which has directly led to increased transportation to facilitate it. This transportation primarily relies on trucks and vans, which consume fossil fuels. And as per data of financial year 2018 to 19, the average CO2 emission of trucks and vans are near about 140 gram per kilometer. Our model focuses on minimizing the carbon footprint by transporting products from warehouses to customer, and in it, the nearest local vendor to the customer acts as a virtual warehouse. To explain this point, I used a practical case. Next slide, please. So this is a map of my locality, which shows the location of the warehouse of a popular e-commerce platform, which is nearly about 15 kilometers from my house, and the local market is located about 1.5 kilometers. Next slide, please. So this slide showcases the difference in the carbon footprint by the transportation of products from e-commerce warehouses to consumers and the additional pathway of local markets which are already having that stock of the product to the customer. We have used 143 grams per kilometer emission value for light commercial vehicles, and we are able to observe a prominent difference. Just by these small practical procedures which we follow in our daily life, we observe a tenfold difference. Imagine the massive impact it will cause if it gets implemented at a larger scale through a model. We can observe even more advantages if we can facilitate deliveries using vehicles that utilize renewable energies like electrical vehicles. In recent times, I've also observed even pizza delivery companies have started using electrical scooters. Moving on to the next point of transport of packaging. As the e-commerce industry has evolved, it has started to use even more efficient and recyclable packaging strategies. But even after such advancements, a large portion of these materials will most likely end up clogging our drains and landfills. And as the e-commerce platforms increase their premium delivery features like ultra-fast deliveries, these newly adopted
progressive policies for packaging might get neglected. In this slide, we have shown emissions due to various packaging materials. Next slide, please. In the current scenario, according to the Indian Institute of Packaging, the packaging consumption in India is increasing at a high pace. And on an average, the consumption is from 4.3 kilograms to 8.6 kilograms per person per annum. As the proximity of vendors and consumers reduce in a model, we'll need minimal packaging. Considering the fact that the consumer will need only a recyclable bag for carrying the products from a local vendor, will absolutely negate all the packaging material like cardboard boxes and plastic wraps which are currently used by e-commerce platforms for their daily deliveries. Consider an example of buying a hand wash packet. If you buy it from an e-commerce platform, it gets packed in a box and with plastic sheets wrapped on it, which which is used for its transportation from the distribution center to the customer. But if we buy that product from a local vendor using our model, then that product reaches the vendor in cartons from the manufacturers, and then for further transportation from the local vendor to the customer, it hardly needs any packaging. Thank you. Now over to Dhyan.
We just discussed our solution of integrated marketplace. Now we shall look into the roadmap plan on how to implement this solution. Initially, for the first 2 years, the government will have to take up the initiative to set up the platform. There should not be any reliance on intermediaries so as to avoid any monetary commission or data breach. This will help in gaining the trust of customers as well as the retailers. After the initial setup of the integrated marketplace, the private companies can be encouraged to optimize the platform. Firstly, we have already seen that e-commerce platforms can tie up with local retailers and store their inventory in the unutilized spaces of the shops. Next, private companies can also be involved by setting up their businesses around having the orders home delivered through the integrated marketplace. Orders of multiple customers can be delivered in the same trip while optimizing the routes taken. Similar to the currently existing food delivery platforms like Zomato, the delivery person can have one large bag carrying multiple customers' products. This way, the products of every customer can be delivered to his doorstep without a need for a separate packaging. Also, the use of renewable energy, as we discussed, renewable energy powered EVs for further delivery reduces the carbon footprint significantly. Over to you, Sandeep, who will discuss the strategic fit of the ideas that we already discussed.
Let's now look into the strategic fit of the ideas we have discussed. One of the direct implications of this model is that due to clubbing orders together, we can reduce effective travel per delivery, which reduces the carbon footprint. This can be enhanced by using electric vehicles. The current demand in the market can be analyzed, and the retailers can procure and deliver items as per the need from the distribution network. We have seen also our model helps in having more efficient packaging and transport. Using plastic-free packaging at checkout, like compostable materials, can create more sustainable. After having the home delivery service implemented, even the need of packaging is almost zero. Eventually, with the use of electric vehicles, the delivery cost is lower and it becomes more carbon efficient once it's been charged by renewable sources of the energy. As we discussed earlier, multiple deliveries are carried out on a single route, which lowers the cost of distribution and reduces carbon footprint. Next slide. Integrated marketplace directly connects customer to the retailers, which avoids commission and delayed payments as compared to e-commerce website. If there is an increased number of sellers into the market, it leads to be competitive prices and the sales will be higher because of ease purchase of customers. We can't completely eliminate the existing e-commerce scene. To order some products, we will definitely require the e-commerce platform. So we would like to suggest two policies for it. If the e-commerce platform can display the carbon footprint associated with each delivery speed option, then a consumer might show some willingness to wait for an order with greener logistics. If the e-commerce platform can motivate its consumers to return back their packaged boxes, which they have got earlier orders, by giving some incentives to them. Thank you. We are open to the questions now.
Hey, thanks guys. Good
So now
presentation.
judges can ask the question.
Very interesting concept of co-optation, right? You're basically saying that you'll create a marketplace where competitors who compete with each other for survival need to necessarily share information about what they're doing and put themselves as equal competitors for the customer's benefit, right? So, how do you guys envision that coming about? Because in the marketplace, there is no preference for me whether I go to store A or store B. And basically, you're also saying that the e-com companies should stop doing whatever they are doing and support these stores instead. So, why would the participants agree to a model like this?
So first of all, due to the ease of access for the customers, we can have an increased sales for all the products. So in our model, the customer only has to decide what products he has to buy, and the platform will give him insights so as to take an optimized route and purchase from which shop. It will give insights on which shop he has to purchase the product from. Also, with the increase of sales, we have seen that this will also be beneficial for the retailers as well. Initially, they might be hesitant, but in the long term, they'll realize that this model is good for them as well. So that's the reason why government has to initially incentivize and let all the retailers list their products in this platform, and at a later stage, it'll be sustainable for all.
Okay. Now the second part of this thing is you're basically saying e-com is bad because the goods are far away, right? And this model, you're saying that the goods would be present closer to the customer. So one of the key concepts of supply chain is around inventory, right? Which is inventory that's sitting in a place not being sold. Without anticipation of who will buy stuff, we are basically saying that all the possible items or wider spectrum of possible items need to be stocked at stores, many stores, closer to every potential buyer, right? So the Cloudtail warehouse, which was trying to cater to distribution of demand across all of Delhi, now instead of that, we will have many Cloudtail type inventory locations across all the stores, all across Delhi. Have you guys thought about the impact it would have in overall inventory procurement, inventory storage, and its obsolescence as well? Right? If customer doesn't buy, I have to give it back at probably a discount. Have you thought about the inventory aspect, not just to related your
Yes, sir.
distance based? That is a very interesting thought process that you guys have brought as to your focus. You're saying, okay, I want to reduce the distance traveled by the customer. You come up with a solution for that. Have you thought anything about inventory?
Yeah, one of the major advantages of a model is we'll get a lot of data, and based on that we can analyze the current demand in the market and dynamically allocate inventory based on the demand in that particular area for that product. So that way we can optimize the warehousing of the products all over Delhi, as we discussed.
Okay. Saurabh, if you have any questions. The other question I have, guys, is speaking for myself. You talked about customers wanting to reduce the distance that they travel for buying. I want to reduce that distance down to zero, right? I mean, you said some people are lazy to go find out if inventory is available at a store. I am lazy to even leave the house. I want the goods to come to my house. That's why e-commerce boomed in this period, right? They inherently encourage the Netflix gang to just sit at home, watch TV while somebody does all the work. You have
Correct, sir.
basically chosen a local e-commerce model, saying, okay, there is necessity for people to actually go to the local shops. Can you figure out a hybrid where, if we figure out the reality is that people don't even want to come to do that 1 kilometer round trip in the weekend to go buy stuff, but they want to do 0 kilometers, would you adapt your delivery model to fit for that kind of behavioral observation?
Yes, we actually did discuss. Samir, you want to answer this?
Yeah, so sir, we actually like mentioned about that Zomato platform, right? So what we do is like we just order and the Zomato guy just goes to that restaurant and gives us the food item that we have just ordered. So in our model, we initially have proposed that the government would just put up some platform which will not have a third party organization, but in a later stage they can also invite a third party organization to like bring its what can I say, it's the logistic people who can just deliver those items from that local shop to the consumer, and like for that they can have some minor commission for that.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, the reality is that at least in Bangalore, and I'm sure in some other cities, you already have companies that are doing that business model, like grocers, right? They basically sell stuff to you from shops and supermarkets nearby. So they take care of that last mile sourcing for the customer or the delivery to the customer. But the point taken. Sort of.
So you would have heard about this open network ONDC platform which government is now building, open network for digital commerce, right? So this idea seems very close to that, but I'm not sure if you are aware about it. It's okay. So how, how it is different than socializing the e-commerce business? I think if you're pointing towards that, because government's initiative is also something close to that they can bring in as many as people to sell online. So how it is different than ONDC? And then I have a follow-up question.
I just have a small doubt, sir. We are not exactly aware of the ONDC, but is it that they are connecting all the e-commerce platforms or all the local shops together?
They're encouraging a new platform where anybody can come in and basically sell, like you were proposing, right? There is a person close by selling, so they can also be online, and then even the distance to deliver is even lesser, right?
Yeah, I understand, sir. One of the major differences is in our model, we are trying to have a tie-up between the e-commerce platforms along with the local retailers, so that they don't have to have special warehouses for themselves. But we know that practically there is a lot of unutilized space in the local retailer shops. So this tie-up can actually diminish that extra need for warehousing.
Okay. So I understand now. So are you saying that the e-commerce companies will actually franchise some local stores? That is the crux of this model, and then they will be delivering from there.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay.
So local stores will be doing what they are doing currently, but along with that, they'll allocate some space for the e-commerce platforms as well.
So wouldn't
gain some commission out of it.
Okay. So wouldn't there wouldn't be any conflict of interest? Like I am selling hair oil, and even Amazon is selling hair oil, and what is the commercial model here? Like for the benefit of the end retailer who's going to give this, is there a service model which you have thought about?
Yes.
Okay.
Amazon will not place those items which are already running in the market from the local retailers, but it will place only those products which, according to its data, is currently trending in the city but it's not available in those local stores. Those are the products which people choose e-commerce for. That is not easily available in the local market, but we can get it in the e-commerce platform.
So are you visualizing more about, or the problem central towards more like tier 3 cities or maybe towns, etc., or is it like a global model which you're thinking
uh, it's not entirely global, but we are visualizing those cities which might not have access to all the products. But this can as well be extended to all the other cities as well.
Okay, in your paper you spoke about figuring out the way on how much an inventory has traveled. So any light would you, or anything would you like to discuss on that?
Yes, sir. What exactly?
How, you had given a couple of formulas which you have articulated, right? So how did you reach out on those
Yeah,
formulas?
that was. Yes, sir. That was just to depict the difference local warehouse of a e-commerce platform does as compared to the local retailers. Um, we have not done an extensive calculation of how all things combined would have an impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is a good concept, guys. You're thinking out of box. So I appreciate much for sharing the ideas.
Yes, thank you
Yeah,
very much,
and
sir.
there are two aspects I wanted to bring out, guys. Right, very novel idea. Obviously needs more research and thought process. There is a ONDC project that I think even Amazon is participating very closely. It actually ties to a question that I wanted to ask, was that every proposal, if it is tied to government support in terms of policy or standardization or subsidies, benefits, or something like that, would have a higher success opportunity. So, tying to some research around what the government is doing in that area and to piggyback on that would be actually an advantage for you guys. The second one is that parts of your solution of e-commerce sites using not just the local stores, specifically Kirana stores, is something that I think uh, Amazon or somebody had tried that, right? E-Kirana or whatever, which included basically providing options for the Kirana stores to put their inventory and their catalog up in the internet for local shopping, as well as for the e-com sites to source material through the Kirana stores, because the Kirana guy knows everybody nearby, right? So the local approaches and all are there, right? So many aspects of things that have been tried before, succeeded at different levels, things that are strategically important for the company. Your ideas cover some of those things. So good show there, guys.
Yeah, and last to Suman's point, right? There should be some kind of framework to monitor that how much of net carbon negative would be achieved with this, right? So that some monitoring can be done, and if there is a marginal improvement or there is a step improvement, because if there is a step improvement, then I think cost uh, could be compromised to some extent. I think, there could be some backing from the industry in terms of CSR, or from government some incentives or tax rebates. I think if that clarity comes out, then the next steps would be like proposed in terms of the investments. Another thing is, loudly think about some, like, as I was asking about what products would be positioned, right? Think about kirana store, if it is about tier 3 or it is about towns, right, where I might not have an electrical shop or electronic shop, and there is an ordering which is happening through Amazon. So it is as good as delivering it from the central or maybe the regional warehouse to that area. How would certain use cases like this probably will help in sustainability and cutting out the carbon. Uh, so I think we need to think about these use cases as well. Okay. Thanks.
Yes, sir. We'll definitely think about these suggestions. Thank you very much for in giving us these insights.
Okay, so now we can move on to the next team. Team number 11, you can raise your hand. I'll give you access. I guess all the participants are on the stage. Can you please confirm?
We'll begin.
Can you please confirm whether... Okay, you can start the presentation.
Yeah, all participants are there. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Team 11's presentation on sustainable supply chain. Now, before we move on, let's just have one thing very clear in our minds. If the Earth is an airplane, none of us here are the passengers. All of us are the crew. It's everyone's collective responsibility to ensure a sustainable world. Now, our main aim here was to create a 5-year sustainable plan for NAWCI to help India achieve its COP26 targets. These two slides here represent the executive summary. Here, we deal with the FMCG industry growing at 20% CAGR, with personal care goods constituting to 50% of the total sales and FMCG being the fourth largest sector in the country. India's COP26 targets mainly focus on reducing emissions and pushing renewable sources in order to achieve finally net zero emissions by 2070. Now, since India ranks third in carbon emissions and FMCG is the fourth largest sector, it is very crucial for us to focus on major emission sources such as greenhouse gases from fuel, lighting, ventilation, cooling systems, B, packaging and plastic waste from single-use plastics and warehouse waste, and C, digital carbon footprint. Moving to our supply chain, as we can see here, it begins with the raw material supplier to the manufacturing plant to the warehouse, where it splits into two channels, e-commerce and traditional retail. From here, it goes either to the distribution center or the fulfillment center, over to the wholesaler or the retailer or the dispatch centers, finally to the end consumer. If at all the product needs to be returned, After the quality check, it goes back to the forward logistics on passing or to disposition otherwise.
Okay, so starting off, we'll talk a bit about the processes involved in warehouses. Following inspection and gatekeeping, incoming goods are sorted and stored in different zones, and the products at the warehouses which are outbound for delivery are picked, sorted, and then shipped for delivery. Now, the problems pertaining to the warehouses processes are as follows. Firstly, we have the lack of digitization, which essentially involves the paper documentation, which decreases the efficiency significantly, followed by the inefficient space utilization, and 20 to 30% of obsolete inventory is evident from that. The third problem that we identified was a labor-intensive process. And lastly, we have the shipping errors, which drastically increase the CO2 emissions per product. And cost of picking constitutes about 55% of the operation costs. Moving on, we have the processes involved in packaging. Starting off, the product is packaged inside primary packaging, followed by the secondary and the tertiary packaging. Now at the warehouse, the tertiary packaging is unpacked and repacked as ordered. And lastly, the customer unpacks the package and disposes it off. And about 90% of the plastic packaging being disposed is recyclable. So there are essentially three problems associated with packaging. First one is the extensive use of single-use plastic, which accounts for about 43% of the packaging material. And it causes about 50% of the plastic waste menace. Then we have the unproductive circularity, wherein recycling plastic does not seem like a viable circular alternative, for it just cut down 30% of the carbon emission, and plastic can only be recycled 5 times. Lastly, we have the inefficient packaging design and the minimal usage of eco-friendly alternatives.
Yeah. So when there are essentially two types of problems in the transportation processes. When bulk of goods are being transported to warehouses and distribution centers, truck space is not efficiently utilized, increasing costs by 33%. And when delivering to the consumer, processes are unoptimized, making last mile the most expensive part of the transport process, accounting for 53% of shipping costs. Deep diving into last mile, one issue is goods reaching the customer. This includes the customer being unavailable because you never check their availability with them. Customers are available, but their address is inaccurate, making it hard to reach them. And finally, finding them after a lot of missed deliveries and wasted effort. Before reaching the customer, the other issue is of trucks. Trucks being inefficiently packed increases the number of trips needed, or trucks being stuck in traffic increases fuel costs and ultimately emissions. Talking about the reverse supply chain, e-commerce return rate is at 30% because of brands making their return process easier. Inaccurate product description, lack of data-driven processes, and unorganized and inefficient reverse logistics depreciate the value of returned goods drastically.
Coming to the solutions that we have brainstormed on, first off, we have the concept of convertible delivery bags. Convertible delivery bags. The purpose behind this solution was to encourage reusability of packaging materials at both middle and the last mile. Products are placed in a convertible bag, which in turn is placed in cardboard boxes at the warehouse. The cardboard box is returned from the dispatch center and the convertible bag is delivered to the customer. These bags have attractive print inside, which can be used as handbags and can later be returned in exchange of green points, which will be discussed later. This will reduce carbon emissions by 21%, which outweighs the initial investment in these bags. With regular R&D, more sustainable bags can be made. The workers will soon adapt to the added effort of packing and unpacking at the warehouse and dispatch center respectively. Delivery optimization. This solution aims to tackle the massive carbon footprint at the last mile. The typo of 88% reduction in carbon footprint is corrected to 17.24%. The customer is given a time slot while ordering. Time slots are divided as 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., 12 to 3 p.m., and lastly 3 to 6 p.m. Then, a day before the delivery, a notification is sent for the customer to confirm. For all the confirmed packages, an AI software allocates these to the delivery men in the most efficient order. Optimized routing will reduce 17.2% carbon emissions. If the notification is not confirmed, other available time slots are offered. In case of continued non-confirmation from the customer, the order is cancelled after an automated call. Data from every travel will only better the AI model with time. The solution improves missed delivery cases and saves 10 to 30% cost while positively impacting the profit by 26%. Next off, we propose a solution for packaging for dispatch at warehouses and distribution centers. Pallets can be replaced by reusable Pallets can be replaced by reusable, biodegradable slip sheets. These will tremendously optimize volume, saving transportation cost by 20% and overall expense by 88%. Stacked goods can be wrapped with a PLA film rather than shrink wraps. These decompose within a week, reducing carbon footprint by 88%, as is very evident from the graph. Substituted pallets can be repurposed in the warehouse. Initial cost of attachments for push-pull forklift is outweighed by the reduced onloading and offloading time and increased goods per trip.
Moving to our next solution on systematic waste management, it ensures that the company can get up to 3.5 tons of carbon credit per ton of plastic processed and reduces road construction cost by 5%. Now, we already know that managing plastic waste has been a big concern for the supply chain for a really long time. In our case, the warehouses release a major chunk of packaging plastic waste and dead stock. Our solution proposes that if plastic is at its last recycling stage, we will segregate the waste into categories like HDPE, LDPE, PET. Now, the aggregated HDPE and LDPE can be sent to government tenders, which can now be introduced in road construction. These plastic roads are comparatively 3 times stronger than the normal ones, and since they don't absorb water, they are more wear resistant. PET plastic can be used in making fibers. It is segregated, shredded, cleaned, and then converted to fiber. By this process, the fabric water efficiency is improved by 90%. And for a single t-shirt, about 240 grams of plastic is used, hence it helps the environment. Talking about the strategic fit, although the process requires some rerouting and waste aggregation, the environmental benefits and the government incentives clearly outweigh the efforts. Moving to our next two warehousing solutions, as we already said in the beginnings for the problems, labor-intensive processes and obsolete inventory are major problems. We need to solve them by digitizing inventory and warehouse management system and also introducing automated robots. These personalized systems can help in tasks like demand forecasting, regular performance tracking of products, allocating warehouse tasks, optimizing routes, both at the warehouse and the last mile deliveries. Product positioning, as in the faster moving goods should be placed nearer to the shipping areas, and further. Coming to the strategic fit, although this digitization would require initial costs, but due to the high increase in efficiency, up to 35% better labor utilization and 2 times less carbon emissions, they decrease the possible returns and end up covering costs and better consumer satisfaction. Also, this solution is implemented by warehouses, but we as NAWCI can ensure that this system is set as an industry standard due to its great impact. Now, as per the capacity in the warehouse, we can introduce automated devices at certain levels of the supply chain. For example, we can introduce RFID handheld scanners for counting if required. Whereas for newer and big warehouses, we can introduce automated guided vehicles with movable shelves. These robots can make the picking process way more efficient because of their ability to lift the entire shelf for automated storage and retrieval. They can move on a predicted path, avoiding any collisions, and act as shuttles to packing lines. About the strategic fit, although automating is very cost intensive, but in place of existing ASRS systems used for automation, which are energy intensive as well as bulky, AGVs, on the other hand, are more efficient and ensure better space utilization.
Now, there are certain initiatives that NAWCI could adopt, which encompasses both the customers and companies in the sustainability mission. Firstly, we have the company green score for the companies abiding by the NAWCI policies. Now, the question is, how is this green score evaluated? The green score would be evaluated on the following parameters. First is how efficiently the companies are disposing of their waste. Secondly, how green their internal processes are. It could be the manufacturing processes, it could be the warehousing operations, it could be the transportation processes. The third one is how they're incentivizing their customers to adopt sustainable measures. Sorry, previous slide. And based on this green score, companies could get incentives like access to investors, facilitated shared economy, and even green certification. For customers, next slide, please. For customers, we have the green points, which can be exchanged for incentive. In order to access these incentives, the customers can return the primary packaging and the convertible plastic bags. Multiple deliveries on different days can be clubbed to a single day. Now they can pick up their orders from the pickup point, and they can even drop off their returns at the dispatch centers. Now, time-phase guidelines with regular checkpoints would certainly help us to reduce the cost and emissions and increase the efficiency simultaneously. For the first mile, we feel that using biodegradable packaging would cut down the carbon emissions significantly. For the second mile, incentivizing a shift to drones and EVs and incorporating AI-based software would enhance the efficiency of processes. And for reducing returns, better product description would reduce the returns significantly. Now, this is how an ideal NWCI members looks like. It has renewable energy, it has solar panel roofs. For effectively utilizing space, it has vertical space utilization, and it has got narrow aisles. For cooling, it has heat-resistant paints and other factors.
Yeah, so in the timeline, we have concrete solutions in the green bars and followed by checkpoints to measure the validity of the solution by red flags. And if it's successful solution, then we implement these on scale as shown by the gray bars. We prioritize delivery optimization and digitizing warehouse because these are tackling last mile costs and reducing dead stock. Other solutions are implemented depending on the success of these and also the cost and effort required for these. Talking about risks, we've defined risks as anything that can derail the solution. After listing the potential risks across all solutions, we have mitigation plans to prevent these from happening in the first place. And say if they occur despite our best efforts, we have contingency responses in store so that we can overcome the damage. Moving on, in the next slide, we've ranked our solutions ranked our risks based on carbon impact and profitability impact, making cost overruns and increasing plastic waste the most critical risks to be solved. Thank you. This was Team 11.
Thank you, team. Now we can move on to the Q&A session.
Hi, Team 11. I think this is, this is a great viewpoint which you have given. If you go to the timeline slide, I have a question there. Yes. So here, what do you think, would be the accomplishments compared to what you want to achieve over these years? What would be the level of accomplishments year by year in 23 and 24? And I know, is this somehow like, we can grade it that we are accomplishing this framework at the end of every year by this much amount or by this much percentage?
Right. Thank you so much for your question, sir. Basically, initially we are phasing the solution depending on the volume and the impact that it is creating. After the end of every year, we are actually implementing the solution, let's say in the place where it would impact the most, and then the impact matrices that we have mentioned for every solution. If my implementation is coming anywhere closer to that, and if that solution is justifying the cost, then we would move on to implement it to the other volumes and the other phases of implementation.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. So on this one, 6 different strategies. Each of them has an implementation plan. So, do you guys have particular central theme or a central idea around which the others will accelerate? Is there a central fulcrum of sorts, or which will pivot this whole strategy? One idea particularly, or one government policy around which this whole idea is built out?
Sure, sir. To answer your question, basically, of all the 6 solutions that we have proposed, we are considering all the stakeholders, like my teammate mentioned previously. Making my supply chain sustainable is not just the responsibility of a company or the government or the other stakeholders involved. We have considered customers, the companies of NAWCI, and to an extent the government as well, to come up with the best solutions that would leave the most impact. Does that clear your question, sir?
Yep, I'm looking for one idea, which is the big one.
So honestly, like my teammate mentioned, delivery optimization, digitizing warehouse, and sustainable tertiary packaging were the solutions that were creating a massive reduction in carbon emissions and were also positively impacting my profit margins. So these were the central themes of our solutions that we have put in various stages of the supply chain to cater to different stakeholders and to cater to different problems across the supply chain as well.
Okay, so these are, I mean, by just stringing these three, you described supply chain as a whole, right? Changing my question, right? Let's bring India into the picture. I mean, all of you have shown India specific data as well. The biggest concern for India is that our population is poor, we are short on resources, right? Our only most abundant resource is people, right? Cheap labor.
Right.
Some of your ideas go against the grain in terms of utilizing the resources that are at abundance and relying on resources that are in shortage. How would you bridge that gap and make sure that you're not losing the overall social purpose, and that we might be very green, but we might be, have creating a whole lot of hungry people?
Sir, yeah, that's a really good point to be considered. So, what we thought is like, even if, let's say, I had to implement a warehouse management system or the inventory management systems, so for that also will create certain more jobs. For example, we'll need more skilled labor to be able to operate this, and certain other tasks which can be accomplished by this. So, overall, we would be like losing some jobs, but it would be adding labor too.
Adding to that, sir, I would just like to mention that, if we consider the digitizing warehouse solution, initially we are just proposing it off in big warehouses, and to an extent we are not fully automating the lower grade warehouses, and that would be mostly attended to by labor only. The solution makes sense because in warehouses, in larger warehouses, labor intensive jobs are actually hampering the overall supply chain, are actually making the company lose on money and profitability as well, and impacting the carbon footprint as well. So we are not totally eliminating human labor, of course, but we are putting automation in places only where it is making sense.
Okay, so the reason I am asking this team this question more than others is because you focused more on optimization, right? All optimization leads to people work reduction. All digitization leads to people work reduction. And India not only has a lot of people, it has a lot of unskilled people, right? So you said that one job will go and another type of job will come. Have you guys thought through how that enablement and job creation would come? Where will the new jobs come? Maybe let's get to one specific thing, right? Couple of ideas of where new jobs get created in this particular mechanism.
Right, sir. To answer your question, I would like to take the solution of convertible delivery bags. So in that, like I said, we would be introducing convertible packages along with the cardboard boxes. So we would be requiring additional labor at both the warehouses to put my product into these convertible bags, and then additional labor at the dispatch centers as well to sort of, you know, take the product with the convertible bag out for the last mile delivery and then return the cardboard box. So in that way, we would be creating a lot of requirement for labor as well in this particular solution.
Even adding to that, for example, in systematic waste management, currently what happens is all the waste is just dumped either into landfills or incinerated. But what we are proposing is we'll aggregate it and segregate it to different categories and create a better waste management plan. So for that also we'll need some labor and jobs would be created there.
So, one question here regarding this reutilization of the packaging. Have you done any investigation on, because this seems like a very logical way to reduce the carbon footprint, that the existing retailers have published some study or some findings on, what are the advantages or challenges to implement it?
Right. So just a little clarification. You're talking about reusing the cardboard boxes, right?
Yes.
Right. So according to the data points that we could research and find out, a typical cardboard box is usually can be reused up to 5 times. And the issue with these cardboard boxes that we could figure out was often the products that we are dealing with, the FMCG products, they're often packed inside cardboard boxes and then they reach the end consumer. And there's no way of retrieving those cardboard boxes back into and implementing it again into the forward supply chain. So by this solution, we are stopping the flow of cardboard boxes till the dispatch center, where the company has a control of actually retrieving the cardboard boxes and putting it into the forward supply chain.
Yeah, so there would be some return logistics involved for that as well, right? So
Right.
have you done any evaluation for that? What's it's going to cost? Whether the freight or the goods will be not having enough value, because it would be all bulky then, right?
Right.
It
Right.
will not have any weight. So compared to the cost of transportation, would it be worthwhile to carry back all these uh, packages back to the warehouse? Any kind of study you have looked at is comparing the carbon advantage with respect to the costs?
Right. Of course, sir. Talking about the freight cost, for instance, for example, if a truck is carrying all the products from the warehouse to the dispatch center, and then the cardboard boxes have to come back to the warehouse in order to be inculcated into the forward supply chain. So what we proposed in our solution is that when let's say our truck takes all the goods from the warehouse to the dispatch center, and then the truck, when it comes back to the warehouse, that empty truck should be filled with these reusable cardboard boxes. Also, the cardboard boxes that we consider here are foldable, so that would reduce the volume that each cardboard would require to a great extent, and hence we could fill up a great amount of cardboard in a truck that is going back from the dispatch center to the warehouse, and hence almost nullifying the need for any additional freight cost.
Okay. So, but my last question to you. So, in terms of deliverables, have you thought about these 3 or 4 initiatives? 4 initiatives you have put in. What will be the return over the time compared to, what we are getting now? Incremental return, like the increase in profitability, the in terms of carbon optimization or packaging optimization. uh, and in terms of customer stickiness, knowing that all these sustainability initiatives have been taken. So any kind of targets which you have set, it will be like there will be a reduction of 90% carbon footprint or 20% carbon footprint. Any such metrics you have come up with for the final delivery of the project?
Yes, so what we have done is for every solution, we have conducted the cost impact and the carbon impact and the feasibility analysis on how the consumer would react to it. So, like for example, talking about delivery optimization. So, what we have come from the guesstimate is that the carbon emissions would be reduced by up to 17%, and the profit impact would go up to 26%. Similarly, we have conducted for all other solutions and conducted the strategic fit analysis.
Okay.
So we are done with team 11, I guess.
Yeah. I don't have any more questions. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the silence, but I didn't have any more questions on this.
Okay. So we are done with all the teams that is scheduled in this panel. I want to thank the panelists, Mr. Suman and Mr. Saurabh, for giving us their precious time. And I would like to thank all the participants for participating in the event. Best of luck for the results. So now we can end the session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, all the judges.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.